The sentences of the main Nazi criminals were announced at the Nuremberg trials on September 30 and October 1, 1946. 12 of them, Martin Bormann in absentia, were sentenced to death by hanging. The death sentences were carried out on the night of October 16. 3 hours before the execution, Hermann Göring committed suicide by taking potassium cyanide. Who exactly carried into the strictly guarded prison capsule with poison, it is not known exactly until now. The others were executed in the converted gymnasium of the Nuremberg prison. The first was former foreign minister of the Third Reich Joachim von Ribbentrop. Around 1 a.m. on October 16, the door to his cell opened. The warden, American Colonel Andrews, read out the sentence once again. Ribbentrop's hands were tied behind his back with black rope. 2 soldiers of the military police climbed with him up a 13-step ladder to the scaffold. Ribbentrop was placed on a closed manhole cover and his feet were tied. He was asked if he had anything to say. After Ribbentrop's high-pitched tirade about the salvation of his soul and world peace, Staff Sergeant John Woods placed a black hood over the criminal's head and tightened a rope around his neck. The executioner activated the mechanism and the hatch flaps opened. The Nazi's death was agonizing. The staff executioner of the U.S. Army Texan John Woods had previously carried out about 300 executions. Despite this, he organized the execution of the main Nazi criminals poorly. The hatches were too narrow, and many of the condemned, falling into them with a rope around their necks, hit the edges of the hatch. The photographs taken after the execution show, for example, that the head of the former Wehrmacht commander, Field Marshal Keitel, was covered with blood. In addition, the length of the rope and the depth of the hatch were poorly calculated, and the condemned died not instantly, not from broken neck vertebrae, but from suffocation. Ribbentrop, for example, agonized for 15 minutes until death came. However, the audience, a total of 40 people, including 8 journalists, 2 each from the USSR, USA, France, and Great Britain, did not see these death throes. The platform was covered with wooden shields and dark tarpaulin, due to the fact that the execution was delayed. And on this night, it was decided to execute all major Nazi criminals. The executioner and his assistants began to hurry. The corpse of the executed was still being removed from one gallows, and the next one was being led to the scaffold. After the execution of the latter, the body of Göring was brought into the hall and put a stretcher with him under the gallows. It was a symbolic act. The corpses of Göring and others were photographed, clothed and undressed, then wrapped in sheets and placed in coffins. The coffins were sealed. In the morning, they were taken by truck, escorted by armed guards, to Munich, to the crematorium on the outskirts of the city. The ashes of the Nazis were scattered in the wind. The crematorium did not know who exactly would be incinerated. Its employees were told that the coffins contained dead American soldiers. The building was cordoned off. Each coffin was opened before cremation to make sure the corpse had not been switched. After the cremation, which lasted several hours, the ashes were collected in a box, which was loaded into a car and driven away. 2 days later, at night, the ashes were dumped from a bridge into the Isar River in Munich. This also took place in secrecy, so there is no place where people could worship the ashes of the main Nazis. The last executions in 1951. The last Nazi criminals sentenced to death at the subsequent Nuremberg trials, 1946 to 1949, were executed at Landsberg prison in Bavaria on June 7, 1951. A total of 7 sentences were carried out on that day. Among those hanged were former SS General Oswald Pohl, who personally supervised the destruction of the Warsaw Ghetto, and Georg Schallermeyer, former commandant of the Dachau branch of the Mulhdorf concentration camp.